As much as I enjoy my grandiose total conversion mods for Europa Universalis 4, every now and then I find it worthwhile to take a look at some of the smaller mods made by some individual creators or a small team that, while maybe not the same scope, still offer a smaller yet still interesting kind of alternate history experience. So that's where we find ourselves today with a mod called The Land of Muhammad ibn Ku. If you're not familiar with this alternate history, it's part of what you would call these theories of pre-Columbian contact with the New World. There are a number of these that have popped up throughout history. Some may be a bit more plausible than others. For example, from what I've read, there's this idea that possibly Zheng He was a Chinese explorer that mapped a lot of like the Indian Ocean and up to like Arabia and stuff for the Ming Dynasty. There's this idea that maybe he went to like California or something, but like no, he probably didn't. And then there are some which are interesting, but I don't think are quite proven, like this idea that there might be some genetic history linking the Polynesians and some parts of South America like Peru. And then of course we have one that's like actually true, and that is of course like the Norse having some kind of contact in North America. And of course we know that because there is a UNESCO World Heritage Site in northern Newfoundland that is actually the site of a very briefly settled area by some Norsemen. And so this kind of falls within a similar purview of those theories, where it all stems from, you probably know of Mansa Musa, super rich guy in Mali. Well, when he was on his Hajj in Egypt, when he was in Cairo, he spoke to an Egyptian official and said like the reason he became the Mansa is because the previous Mansa went on a journey to cross the Atlantic and was never seen again. That spawned the idea of Mansa Abu Bakr II, who I think we don't actually have evidence for being a Mansa, a guy who actually existed and ruled the country. But instead it could point to a different guy who did exist, whose name was Muhammad ibn Ku, which is of course where we derive the title for today's mod. Now, did that guy actually decide to take a voyage to try and cross the Atlantic? Maybe. Did he ever arrive in Brazil? Probably not, but it's interesting to think about, and that's what the mod is based on. What if he actually did arrive in Brazil over here in these two provinces? Now, of course, this would have been like well over 100 years ago in the timeline here, so whatever remains in this area is not particularly stable, and the colony is under threat of being entirely wiped out. So here we are, the land of Muhammad Ku. The year's 1444, while empires rise and fall across the old world, a small band of Malian settlers, the descendants of the legendary Mansa Muhammad Ku, have carved out a precarious foothold on the distant shores of South America. Driven by trade winds and the promise of new lands, they have named their fledgling colony Tilibundu. Though far from their ancestral home, the settlers carry with them the rich traditions and skills of the Mali Empire. But this new land is wild and untamed, the local tribes are wary, and the vast rainforest holds both wonders and dangers. Tilibundu is a tiny spark in a vast wilderness, a seed planted in foreign soil. Will it wither and fade, or will it grow into a mighty tree bearing the fruits of a new civilization? Great challenges lie ahead. In particular, I know we have this new mechanic for us, colonial strength. If it stays below 10 for too long, it will actually end the nation, so we're going to have to figure that out first. We do also have a mission tree. I don't know if we have anything unique for the estates. Maybe, I'll have to take a look. But we've essentially set the stage for today's video. Let's see what we can do with this mission tree. We're going to need 20 colonial strength and 1 stability. That's going to give us an event and additional, I'm assuming that's colonial strength as the resource there. And to bump this up, we're going to have to develop provinces. So we actually do not start with a colonist. We're not going to be doing much colonizing, but we do start with development costs, which is quite nice. We'll also go ahead and deal with the estates to begin with. We're going to look for mostly points at the beginning because we need to do a lot of developing. I think in particular we're going to be looking for military and diplo points. We will also want to make adopting technology cheaper, so we're going to want to increase our piety. Doesn't look like there's anything particularly unique in the estates right now, so I'm just doing whatever I can to make sure everybody is happy. Because of our unique situation, I don't think we're going to be able to actually conquer that much. So we need to make sure our crown land is not too low at the start. Also, funny enough, we can't even see our own trade node, so we can't even put a merchant in there. Although we do have 2, and one's being used for something. Okay, the Emir and his advisors. A shadow falls over Tilibindu. Our once abundant lands are yielding less, and the storehouses are growing bare. A resource crisis looms, threatening our prosperity and stability. The Mansa has called upon the Council of Advisors, each a wise and experienced leader, to deliberate on this grave matter. We have various decisions to fix our country. Oh boy, okay. Yeah, this is not going to be super easy. So, we need to repurpose the old trade fleet. We do have some ships, so that kind of makes sense. We can lose 7 of those ships, which, sure, I mean, I guess. It's not like we're really using them for anything else. The ships currently are gathering dust in the harbor, but the people of Dalaba are resourceful. We can either give ourselves to production, to tax, or to manpower in the capital. Although I'm not a massive fan of tax dev in the long term, I think in the short term it's going to be quite useful. We'll also take that colonial strength, of course. And then we're going to need some money and 100 admin power, so it's a really good thing I didn't go ahead and decide to spend our admin yet. I was going to bump up stability, but good thing I didn't. Oh, here we go. We have discovered the coast. Let's go ahead and collect that trade. And I guess funny enough, it actually would be worth it to protect trade. Also, would you be interested in buying some ships? Nope, never mind. Oh, here we go. As the nation expands and revitalizes itself, the population is experiencing somewhat of a baby boom. That's nice, although I feel like we haven't really been doing that much, but that works. It's not exactly ideal, but I think I will go ahead and sell titles just because it'll give us another province here. Wolof Janfa was once the principal port of Tilibindu. However, in a raid by the barbarians, it was lost. We must recover it, of course. So we get a frontier, much better than an actual colony for us, just because we're kind of broke. For 20 ducats, we can restore the Mosque of Dalaba. The last time a prayer service was held there was nearly 30 years ago. That's quite some time. Well, we can get that mosque, a whole lot of legalism, and 10 prestige. Super useful to get that legalism, actually, because we would love to base currency for at least a little bit of money, even if it's not very much. But also, now that we have that mosque, it makes it easier for us to develop here with our development of temples. And we actually do have to do that. We need to improve the capital at least 5 times. Okay, that's not too bad at all. We just need to improve our technology and then also get 1 stability. There we go. For a century now, we've struggled, ailing like a beast addled by disease. Civil wars, rebellions, famines, diseases, they've all contributed to our failure to grow. We must pull ourselves back from the brink lest we fade into the night. We get recovering colony for 10 years for cheaper development cost. Maybe I should have done that before this, but that's life. And we get some more colonial strength. Reforms of Abdul Sangar. Recently, a man has been rising up in the ranks of the administration of Tilibindu, both extremely competent and brings new ideas about how to administer the colony. He is 75% cheaper, not too bad, although can we afford him? Kind of barely. We'll take that. Okay, that's not great. Devastation and -5 colonial strength. Lovely, thank you. A local lord has died, giving us... That's actually a lot of stuff. Okay. Base tax, 4 ducats, 50 of each point, and 5 colonial strength. That is pretty useful for allowing us to tech up, which we do have to do. The capital only needs to be improved 5 times. I can go ahead and just exploit that development for some money. And we don't have much, but I think it's probably worth investing in another advisor. The colony is done at the same time we just got an heir. They're okay, pretty much average with weirdly weighted points. Ooh, well, there goes the ruler. Not exactly great to have that happen so early, but that's life. Speaking of things not being great, yeah, okay, so we just lost a whole lot of additional colonial strength and money, and we cannot afford to build this. Alright, time for us to take out a few loans already. Now, getting better tech is great and all that, because we do actually need it, but for the time being, I think it might be more useful to actually just develop as much as we can. The more colonial strength we get, the more production and manpower we get, and also the closer we get to being able to actually use a colonist. Here we go. We are no longer the early Tilibindu settlement. We've now developed enough to the point where we can actually use a colonist. We're going to go with the repression policy simply because it is the fastest. And we're going to start by settling some of the higher dev stuff up here in the north. Let's not forget, of course, that we do need to establish New World missions, do a bunch of this stuff. Now that we're colonizing, it is worth it for us to get the 2 generals necessary for this next mission. We're going to raise the militia to keep the young men busy and out of trouble, and also, you know, to have a military. That gives us 10 prestige and a permanent claim on the one province right here. And hopefully, with our superior technology, despite the fact that we're going to be fighting 3 different countries, we should be able to win. Another really funny thing is that technically we can grant a New World Charter, which means that we can get an explorer with 40 tradition. And so with my 3 lightships, I could actually go exploring and find West Africa again. I don't think we're going to focus on that. For now, I'm more interested in seeing if we can access some more of the trade nodes, like maybe the one down here. Pretty unlikely just considering how far away we are, and yeah, that's inaccessible, but it's the thought that counts. Actually, it's really interesting. For you to explore across oceans, you specifically need the quest for the New World. Now, I don't think there's really a reason for us to not annex these guys. I think we do have to take everything eventually, and aggressive expansion is not really a concept in this part of the world. Likewise, I might be jumping the gun a little bit here, but I'm just gonna annex everybody. Now that we've cored this province, we have thoroughly crushed the Southerners. For too long, they have skirted subservience outright to our benevolent rule. We cannot allow them to fester and grow stronger, for surely they will subsume us if we let them. For 30 years, we get ended the Tupiniquim raids, giving us minus 20% colony cost modifier. That was the primary objective, but we also get some permaclaims and 100 military power. Tragically, these 2 provinces are actually too far away for us to core, so I guess we actually just have to make a couple of subjects. Oh yeah, that's great. Okay, I guess we're going to have to bump it up, but we're gonna wait until the Regency is done, I guess. Let's also get a little bit of extra money. Not that there's much to spend it on other than the usual expenses. New Sultan, finally, and actually not a bad heir to the throne. I kind of like that. Let's go ahead and bump up that stability once. Well, once we're out of the Regency, technically. There we go. Let's go ahead and pick up that admin tech. Finally, we can revitalize the colony. For too long, we've been caught in a quagmire of chaos, infighting, and decay. We have allowed our dearest and most cherished institutions to fall behind that of local endeavors. This must be remedied at once. Our capital must be the envy of all others. You know, the 1 or 2, maybe 3 other capitals we know of. We get 25 prestige and a upgraded mosque in the capital. With all 3 complete, we have fought hard to stave off our decline. Now, with revitalized production and a fledgling army, we feel hope that all can be set right. Survival is in sight. The people of Tilibindu have faced great challenges in recent years, but they've not been broken. The nation has weathered storms of economic hardship, political strife, and even foreign invasion. But through it all, the spirit of Tilibindu has remained unbroken. The people have shown resilience, resourcefulness, and a deep commitment to their homeland. Now, as the clouds begin to rise, a new dawn is breaking over Tilibindu. The nation is poised to rise from the ashes of its past and build a brighter future. We get the reorganization until the end of the game, giving us plus 20 global settler increase, allowing the recruitment of explorers and conquistadors, and minus 20% colony cost. We also get 100 of each monarch power. Since we don't really need any of the technologies in particular, we can just get set to developing the Renaissance. And now we could do that in the capital. That would kind of make sense because we do kind of have to do that at some point, I think. Actually, no, the capital doesn't even need to have very much development. And in fact, we do want to keep it relatively small because it needs to have fewer than 2 building slots remaining. If we develop it too much, we quite literally will not be able to build enough buildings. So instead, I'm going to spawn the institution over here after I take out a loan or 2 and decide to build a mosque. Then on top of that, I'm actually going to take out a couple more loans. I'm going to upgrade this to a level 2 center of trade just for cheaper development cost. We'll also do that. And now we have the Renaissance. With all that extra crown land, we can sell it to pay off those loans we took out in order to be able to develop it. In fact, I think I'll go ahead and pay off the 1% loans because these new ones are like 70% larger. Also, I realized that technically this mission only requires you to own all these provinces, not make them into cities, which is what a completed colony is. So if we just put down these 2 settlements, we can finish this off. We get 25 years of construction cost reduction and increased settler chance, and a couple of permaclaims on areas that I assume I kind of already have. Ooh, a new culture in Tilibindu. For generations, Tilibindu has been a crossroads of culture, a melting pot of Malian traditions and native influences, but in recent years, as the nation has grown in strength and isolation, a new identity has begun to emerge. The people of Tilibindu are no longer just Malians who happen to live across the sea, they are something new, something unique. This new identity is both a source of pride and uncertainty. Tilibinduan becomes the new primary culture. Does it change all of the actual cultures though? It does. Okay. Through the power of exploiting all the tax dev we can now embrace the Renaissance and thus pick up the next few techs. We can also pick up another idea group, and I think it's obvious we're going to be looking for expansion for our very first one. 2 comets sighted in 30 years of gameplay. That is amazing. Thank you. For our first age ability, of course, we'll go with higher developed colonies. I think it would be pretty bad for us if we allowed Portugal to start colonizing near us, as of course they would if we give them the opportunity. So we're going to flesh out the northern coast here, and then we'll just kind of move down towards the south. Instead of selling titles this time, I actually do want to get that last power point per month, especially now that we're going through expansion. I think at this point I would also like to make the current Sultan abdicate. He is a babbling buffoon, which is hampering my annexation progress, even if it's not by much. And frankly, the air is just a little bit better. Ooh, right, okay, when you annex a subject, it does give you maps. I kind of forgot about that. We've constructed enough in Dalaba to finish this mission off. The ulama wish for a grand mosque, reminding our populace not only of our wealth and rich heritage, but also the deity who watches over us all. Since Dalaba is a level 2 center of trade, it will gain 2 base production, and the monument will increase by 1 development. Pretty good monument, it gives us plus 10 global settler increase. And global trade power up to, what is that, plus 20% is actually really good. Now that we've stacked enough piety, we can figure out the role of Islam in our new country. We've miraculously brought written word to these new lands. We've worked hard to remember the prophet, his story, and the true word. As our scholars have struggled to survive, replicate, and carry on their traditions, our people have descended into strange barbarism inspired by the locals. The ulema propose we either reconcile with these new ways or crush them outright and return to theological clarity. So we have the theology of Borama Tonkara. A growing religious movement has found itself cemented in the land of Tilibindu. They blend both traditional Mande and native Tilibinduan traditions together to form a radically syncretic new sect of Islam. Leading the movement is one Borama Tonkara, who has served as the main focus for the new religious community as well as its greatest theologian, writing down and securing its teachings. So much so that his name is being used for the sect. So it can become our new state religion. We lose 100 prestige, but we do get to convert pretty quickly. And of course, it's something new, we're going to take it. So what does this do for us? Borami. Okay, so it makes it a little bit closer to a pantheon, which respects local spirits, but those are ultimately depicted as being subservient to Allah. Okay. Yeah, this would be quite the heresy, and that kind of makes sense because it gives us plus 3 tolerance of heathens and plus 3 maximum tolerance of heathens. I didn't really consider that Tupinari might want to go ahead and invade the Portuguese colony. Tragically, I do need stuff that they're trying to take, so I might have to kill them, but at the very least, we can go ahead and make sure we grab at least a few things. Also, I think I'll probably go with expand temple rights as our state and religion reform. So, Tupinori, you do have a few favors that I could ask for. I'll just get a little bit of money, I guess. But then we do have to break the alliance. I had to pause colonization a little bit because I do have to improve each of our provinces at least 1 time. And that does include colonies, which you can't improve until they're no longer colonies. Our newfound prosperity is an inspiration to the people, giving us 30 years of 10% production efficiency, tax modifier, and manpower modifier in all of our provinces. Again, we technically don't have to colonize these provinces, we just have to own them as colonies. For generations now, we have ventured south, yet never dreamt of establishing more than mere outposts. These rich and vibrant coastlines must be rendered unto us. Many a city could be glimmering, we must simply lay down the foundations. Ironic considering that we're not really laying down the foundations as much as we are simply taking stuff from the people that we've conquered here, but regardless, we do get 50% local production efficiency in Rio de Janeiro, which will begin to produce dyes. We also get permanent claims on a couple of areas. I've actually changed my mind with Tupinori now that they are a single province. I think I might be able to vassalize them if I can get their trust up enough. For the next idea group, I think I'm still going to go with exploration, even if it seems a little predictable, a little bit standard maybe. It does tie into one of our missions. It does make it a little bit thematically appropriate. Here we go. Portuguese Brazil is back, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and take everything. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to vassalize Tupinori. They just don't like me as much as they used to. It's kind of my fault, but that's life. Alrighty, I'll just take all this. Tupinori can have one province back. That did take a while, but we finally finished this mission. Like a great gluttonous serpent, Nar al-Amzon winds lazily into the fearsome jungles. We may follow it, but it will be no easy feat. Our merchants have heard tale of fantastical ruins, deadly foes, and buried treasures, awaiting those who are brave enough to forge west. Regardless, the Al-Amzon must be conquered in the name of our interests. That of course refers to the Amazon River. Barrow Hijinka will get their trade building upgraded. We also get a few permanent claims, which I guess technically I should have grabbed before coring. We'll just go ahead and do that actually. It'll save us a little bit of admin. Oh, that's crazy, what do you know? So it turns out we actually do need to own this province. Who could have guessed? Okay, turns out this is actually incredibly important. Well, I guess we're gonna break the alliance again. Yeah, that's just really unfortunate. We do have a touch of missing localization. Remember, this was made for the modathon, so it's a little rough around the edges, but we did discover gold in one of our colonies. Now that we have quest for the New World, we can go to our nobility and ask for one of my favorite privileges, the expedition rights, which just decreases the cost of all of your colonies. We do make quite a bit of money, so I think at this point I'm gonna go ahead and actually create 2 more colonies. So now, even with our 5 colonies, we're only paying 10.68 ducats, which would be roughly the amount we would pay if we actually had 5 colonists. At last, it is time for us to send an expedition back to the east to find the old Mali kingdom and to figure out where exactly we ended up in relation to them. We are strangers in a strange land, and we have fought hard to survive. In our hearts, however, we feel we are not at home. Across the sea to the east, our brothers in faith and culture await us yet. We would be fools not to simply investigate, to discover what has become of what we left behind. Remember, of course, Mali begins in their disaster at that point. Mali is still very much in decline, so we might find very little. Generations have passed since our ancestors left the shores of West Africa. Though we have built a prosperous life here in Tilibindu, the call of our homeland echoes in our hearts. Explorers and merchants alike speak of rich lands and powerful kingdoms to the east. The time has come to bridge the vast ocean and rediscover our roots. A grand expedition is proposed to sail eastward and re-establish contact with the lands of our forefathers. Let the sails billow and the drums beat. We shall brave the seas and reconnect with our ancestral lands. We should expect them to return in a year's time. Our truce with Tupinori has also ended, and the expedition has returned after months at sea. They bring tales of vibrant markets and powerful kingdoms, lands rich with gold and stories of our shared heritage. But they also bring somber news. The once mighty Mali Empire, the heart of our ancestors, has fallen. Its lands are fractured, its cities diminished. A deep sadness settles over our people. We are faced with a choice. Will we mourn the past, or will we rise to the challenge and honor our legacy in a new way? We discover a good part of West Africa, and we get permanent claims on some part of the old Mali Empire. We also get 30 years of preparing an invasion fleet, giving us 10% morale of navies, minus 15% ship costs, and minus 1 combat penalty when landing. I will go ahead and grab this stuff though. Vicious warriors, hoarders of resources, and insidious upstarts, the Tupinori fashion themselves kings of the jungle. They fail to know the true nature of Allah, meanwhile, and resist our authority stubbornly. This affair must be amended at all costs, their destiny reduced to dust. And those intentions are quite serious as we change the culture in Tabokali to Tilibinduan. The religion also changes to Baurami, and we create a level 1 center of trade in the province, while we also gain 150 mil power and upgrade the monument by 1 level. The monument starts by giving us attrition for enemies and max hostile attrition in the province, so it's great for a fort. It also gives us a global 10% income from vassals and minus 10% liberty desire in subjects. I don't think I even mentioned that I did spawn colonialism in this province, and it has spread quite a little bit because we have a lot of high development along this one sea tile here. so I'm going to quickly take out a couple of loans and embrace it. Funny enough, I actually don't have to invade any of Mali. I could just colonize 3 provinces and call it a day, but I did go ahead and establish this colony here as a sort of landing zone, even though honestly I don't think we need one. We can also pick up our 3rd idea group. This time it will be a military one, and let's be honest, you already know which one I'm taking. There goes the old Sultan. I do actually like this one a lot more because I need a lot of Diplo points for a particular mission. We needed all that Diplo to develop these 2 provinces to 20 development, and because we have those 2 and there are 2 gold provinces in these areas, we can finish gold of the south. Beneath our feet, riches await us. We need only dig, but for that to happen, we need the means of production. Labor and production need to be procured if we are to extract gold from the land. Both of those 20 development provinces will now begin to produce gold. It will also increase our chance of discovering gold, which is why I wanted to do it as early as we could. And then we also get a new privilege, controlled gold mining. This is one of the better ones, of course. We do get less gold each month, but it significantly reduces the chance of depletion and reduces the inflation. We'll use that new money from all that gold to embrace the Defender of the Faith. We are, of course, the only country in this religion, so it's basically just a free missionary. The army is trained, the navy is prepared, and although we're not going to need this many troops, and it is a little bit overkill, but we're going to begin our reclamation of West Africa. It was a little bit harder than I thought it would be, only because of course we have to go back and forth between fighting on the west and fighting in the south, until eventually we capture a fort and just grab a whole bunch of territory, so Timbuktu will peace out. And then, of course, Jollof we will completely annex. That makes this a pretty good time to finish our mission Country at Crossroads. Having mustered a fleet anew, our precious homeland is within reach once more. We see that the world we left behind has changed, or perhaps we were the ones who have changed beyond all recognition. Regardless, we have a decision to make. We must embrace our new identity, or attempt to rekindle our connection to the homeland. The winds of the Atlantic have carried more than just ships to our shores. For generations we have thrived in this new land, building Tilibindu from a humble colony to a vibrant realm. Yet whispers of our ancestral home, the mighty Mali Empire, still linger in the hearts of our people. Some dream of re-establishing that glorious empire, reclaiming its lost territories and restoring its former glory. Others, however, see a different path. They envision a new empire, born from the rich soil of the New World, a fusion of Malian strength and the vibrant cultures of this land. I think after well over 100 or maybe even 150 years, the identity of Tilibindu is that of something a little bit newer. We even have our own interpretation of the faith and our own new distinct culture, although sharing many similarities. I think it's time for us to forge a new path. It gives us the New World Empire Tier 1 government reform, which gives us minus 10% stability cost, plus 1 possible advisor, and plus 1 colonist. If we decided to restore Old Mali, we would get minus 15% core creation cost and a couple of claims. And then of course we would have the option to form, well in theory, the option to form Mali. We did in fact have that option for quite some time, but I guess it disappeared when we changed our culture. So maybe that's just a slight oversight in this mod, but that's okay. Just to be thorough, I did go ahead and finish off these last 2 missions. First by doing a whole bunch of developing. Having made contact with the world of old and brought our people to new heights of wealth, we've realized as of late that we boast an incredible variety of luxuries and goods that the old world know not a thing of. Delicious plants, sweet fruits, beautiful timber, glittering gems, we have all this and more to offer the world. Let us share our luxuries for a reasonable, hefty price. We get an event, our private trade fleet's privilege will double its ship trade power and cost no influence, and we gain 5 mercantilism. Our climate has allowed us to grow various crops that are rather scarce among the nations of the old world. A momentous decision has come upon us, one to decide what we shall focus on exporting to the rest of the world. Mansa himself has decreed that Tilibindu shall primarily produce, well, let's see, what do we mostly have? Gold. Honestly, it's a lot of gold. Coffee, tea, and sugar all share the same base price. Cocoa has a higher base price, but we have a lot less of it. and tropical wood just kinda sucks. So we will go with sugar. We've also converted enough provinces to finish this mission off. We've regained clarity and our eyes have been opened. Now we must set forth and teach the true word. For so long as the realm is divided on religious matters, we will always suffer from darkness and instability. Since we follow Borami, we get tolerance of the true faith and tolerance of heathens, as well as minus 10% development cost in primary culture. And if you ask me, that is a significantly better set of modifiers than the alternative. With that being said, I think that's where we're going to end things for today. I could, if I wanted to, go ahead and release Mali, reconquer it, all that stuff, but we have reached the end of our mission tree, and thus most of the content for this mod. We are the 6th greatest power. We make 103 ducats per month, which as far as we can tell is in the 5th, maybe 6th spot, depending on if Ming is still alive, which they are not, so probably 5th spot. If you have any suggestions for smaller mods like this that I should check out, then of course leave them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like on the video, or even subscribed and put the notification bell on to make sure you don't miss the next upload. For now, I'll leave you with this incredibly cursed Europe, and as always, have a fantastic day. I'd like to give a big thank you to all of the patrons for this month. Everyone who donates gets early access to videos for as low as $1 a month, so I'd like to give a special thank you to those who decide to donate more than that. So thank you Erica, Baby Cal, Born to Dunk, Gallo4, Le Quebecer, Mikhail Sample, Nick Steffel, Princess Rhea, Q-Brute, AG Forero, Ben Mottram, Quiet Guy, Rosset, Torvalve, Ambient Cyan, Elysia Tatz, James Levy, Luke78776, Stalin DLRP, and Robert.